good afternoon, or good morning, good night, whatever time y'all are listening. For us, it's afternoon in Arkansas. Good afternoon, YouTube. My name's Lorelei. Behind the camera is Kevin. We are Stonecabinadventures. And let me tell you a thing that I believe to be true. This quilt that I'm sitting on was made by a friend of mine named Debbie Oker. Every year, one of her math classes, I think geometry, would make a quilt. This is the last quilt that the class made, that one of her classes made before she passed. And we miss you, Debbie. And awesome legacy. Your students will always remember you and will always love you. And every time I use this blanket, I feel like I'm wrapped up in your love. So God bless you, Debbie Oker. No tears. I want to share a story with you that I'm still in the middle of writing. I'm at about 80,000 words. So it's supposed to be a children's story, but it's the hero is 8 years old. Her name is, well, no, she's not. She'll be 8 at Christmas. Her name is Pinky Calhoun, and the year is 1880. So this has been a fun story to write. And let me get started. I'm just going to read you about 5 pages today. I don't know of any other authors who are sharing their work like this on YouTube, but most of the ideas I have are ideas other people have had first, so it wouldn't surprise me if indeed other people were sharing. So this is May of 1880, and Pinky's talking. When I seen that boy swinging naked from the rope, I figured God would strike me blind. That wouldn't have been fair. I didn't plan to see. I wouldn't have even seen him, but I heard all the yelling, and I never seen a hanging, but I heard one. I just knew somebody was being hanged, judging by all the hooting and hollering. That hanging I nearly saw had been in Leakin Rock. Me and Pa and Mr. Harkin had gone there to the assayer's office because Mr. Harkin has a mine. He thought he might need Pa to protect him. Pa can shoot better than anyone. It's a long walk to Leakin Rock. We walked because Pa says, broke people don't get robbed, and broke people don't ride in buggies. So we walked. I didn't even get to see which rock leaked. We tried to get out of town before the hanging, but people broke into the jail and pulled the man out a day early to hang him. We got trapped in the crazy crowd. Pa hid my eyes, but I heard it. Everybody yelling, hang him and kill him. Hurt my ears until the last second. Then a crash, and most everyone went quiet and walked away. There was a couple of crazies who kept cheering. I tried real hard to see, but Pa swatted my behind gentle-like and said, stop. He used that special soft voice that means he ain't fooling. I managed a little peek, but by then we were too far away to see good. That hanged man sure was fat. Maybe he'd been stealing food. We stopped by a circus on the way back home. It wasn't really a circus, but their wagons were painted up all pretty. Their clothes were different, too. Pa told me to watch my pocket and his. He said those circus people have a reputation for taking money and watches and stuff from people's pockets. Those circus people were in trouble. They normally had a man who could fix anything. Mr. Harkin called them tinkers and gypsies. From what I could make out with the little bits of English they spoke, their man who used to fix wheels had got hisself killed over a girl a few weeks back. Pa sighed real big and put down his stuff we bought in town. He and Mr. Harkin went to work on the broken wheel. One of the girls snuck up behind me and held my hand for a second. Then she nodded her head away from the circus wagons and away from Pa. I looked in her eyes, and she jabbered at me. Pa, can I go with Emerald? I didn't know what her name was. Her eyes were as green as Mrs. Kruger's wedding ring. My best friend Emmy told me that wedding stone was called an emerald. I didn't figure this girl could be insulted by being called after a pretty ring. He glanced up and spoke softly. Do not get in their wagons. If they try to make you, scream as loud as you can. He nailed me with his eyes. I'd kill every living thing in this camp to get you back. Emerald giggled and grabbed my hand again. We ran off a little ways from Pa and the broken wagon to where a couple of wagons were off by themselves. That Emerald girl ran through the woods with barely a sound. When we got to their horses, Emerald pulled some carrots from her pocket and gave me half of them. I gave one of the horses a carrot, but that green-eyed witch child dragged me over behind the wagons like she wanted me to see something. I turned the corner and my feet forgot how to walk. The biggest buffalo in the world stood there calmly eating grass. Emerald was near as tall as me, and that thing's head was longer from its mouth to its horrible hooking horns than she was tall. It towered above those decorated gypsy houses. She walked right up to it and grabbed one horn and shook it. He lifted its head and turned. She held on. The hairy monster slung her around and thumped her against his side. She laughed. It went back to eating. She let go and scratched between its eyes. I held out my hand toward its horn. Emerald nodded. It slung me around like it had her, except it didn't go back to eating and let me off where it picked me up. It slung its head and slammed me against its side, back around in front and slammed me against its other side. I let go and fell on my behind when I landed. That big old bull snorted and went back to eating. Emerald handed him a carrot. I had learnt my lesson. That bull was nice the first time and rowdy the second time. I figured if he gently took a carrot from her hand, he'd probably bite my arm off at the elbow. I piled my carrots on the ground. He snuffed and grunted and chomped like he was starving, and those carrots were the last bit of food in the world. We moved to a soft patch of grass and sat there admiring her beast. I couldn't help but wonder how many people could eat if we butchered him. I bet our whole town could feast for a week. He was huge. Emerald's ma came and sat with us. She said they bought the huge thing in Virginia. That's pretty far away. Pa whistled and I jumped up and took off running. I heard someone coming along fast after me. They didn't make enough noise to be the buffalo, but way too much noise to be Emerald. I ran faster. I didn't know who they were, but I'd have bet my biggest rattlesnake rattle that I wasn't running fast enough. I ran to where Pa was working and slid to a stop, curling down and hugging my knees when I did. The boys chasing me were probably Elmer's age or a little older. One of them caught up to me as I ducked. He tripped on me and went tail end over tea kettle. The second boy must have not been paying any attention to anything but running. He tripped on me too and stepped all over his friend and skidded on his face when he fell. Pa put his hand on my head. I recognized that grip, so I stood up. He helped those boys up and dusted them off a little. He pointed at me and said, "Mine." I never heard that much iron in his voice. They got the message and they bowed to me and to Pa and Mr. Harkin. Pa held out his hand and those boys turned their pockets wrong side out. Pa grabbed one of those boys and wrapped his arm around his neck and held him off the ground, kicking and choking. I stared at Pa with my mouth hanging open. I couldn't see that he had any cause to be mean to that boy. The other one gave Pa's watch back. I didn't know it was possible, but my mouth dropped even further open. Pa pointed to the pile of stuff we bought in town. Seemed to me that pile had gotten smaller while I admired their monster buffalo. Pa squeezed a little tighter on that boy's neck, and one at a time, people edged out of the woods and piled bits and pieces of our stuff back on the stack. Pa pointed at the wheel they'd fixed and flashed his free hand at him 4 times. One of the men handed Pa a $20 gold piece. Mr. Harkin murmured something to Pa. Pa put the money in his pocket. He picked up a rock, and after he had most everyone's attention, he tossed that rock in the air and shot it. By the time anyone could look back at Pa, his gun was back in his holster. In less than 3 breaths, all those people have faded back into the woods. I couldn't believe it. While Pa was helping them, they had been robbing him. I don't know what those boys had planned to do to me when they caught me. I'm glad they learned not to mess with the Calhoun. I took a moment to contemplate if that fat man, the hanged man, had messed with the Calhoun. He wouldn't never do that again. I listened really close. If people were getting hanged at the river, I didn't want to get dead too. Maybe what I heard was the start of a hanging. Maybe someone needed to run for help. I had to figure out what was going on so I'd know what kind of help to go get. I snuck up and peeked through the plum thicket. My gray and green striped dress was my favorite for playing hide and seek at school. The stripes hid me as well in those plum bushes as they did in the tall grass by the school. The bad part is the buttons up the back where I can't reach 'em. I got 6 new dresses with buttons up the back because Emily is stout. None of the other girls in my town have more than 2 or 3 dresses. Emily's cousin Mary passed because of a bad measle. Mary lived in a town where dresses must be easier to get. Maybe Mary's folks spoiled her. That dead girl's ma gave Mary's dresses to Emily, but she couldn't fit 'em. I think she gave 'em to me because she can't walk right. I always walk slow with her. I have to give the dresses back when I outgrow 'em or Emily gets skinnier. I doubt she wants the things then. Pa claims I'm so rough and tough that I wear out my clothes from the inside first. He's not far wrong. Okay, so that's pages 1 through 5. Here in a day or two, I'll read 6 through 10. I love Pinky. Oh my goodness, I love Pinky.
Like and subscribe.
What?
Like and subscribe.
Oh, yeah, like and subscribe. I was like, you like Pinky? You don't read Pinky. How do I know if you like Pinky? Okay, yes, definitely like and subscribe. Hello, this is Smart Water. No, I know it was like product placement, but no, Smart Water is not sponsoring this episode or any episode that I know of yet. Hello, Smart Water, you can send the cash this way. The address is on the bottom. No, but seriously, people, if you like it, if you like hearing stories, or you have ideas for more stories, put them down in the comments. Please click the like button. If you haven't already subscribed, please do that. That does help us get further down the road. We're not to a point where we're monetized yet.
Share.
But and you're welcome to share the video. I know it's a thing I wrote, and there's copyright. And please share the video. Tell everybody where you got it. Yeah, Anyway, that's the first 5 pages, and I'm 80,000 words into the story, so I've got several more 5-page episodes that I can share with you. Bye, Facebook. This isn't Facebook. Share it on Facebook. Share it on YouTube. Share it on Pinterest. Share it on LinkedIn. Cut this part out. Don't use it. Share it. Like, subscribe, and share. Mwah. God bless you guys.